August 16, 1977, Graceland, Memphis. The world awoke to the unthinkable. Elvis Presley, the legendary king of rock and roll, found unresponsive in his private sanctuary. But behind the headlines and the official reports, whispers of something far more unsettling began to emerge. Those who were there that night, those who saw him in his final moments, knew a truth that never made it to the public. What really happened in those eerie, silent hours before the world lost a legend? And why were certain details kept in the dark? Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll uncover the shocking truth that was hidden for decades. In the months leading up to that fateful night, Elvis Presley's health had been in rapid decline, though few truly understood the extent of his suffering. His once magnetic stage presence had dimmed, his movements slower, his energy seemingly drained. Those closest to him whispered of his struggles, of the relentless battles with chronic pain, fatigue, and a body weakened far beyond his years. Yet despite his deteriorating condition, the world still saw him as the larger-than-life king, the man who could command a stage with just a curl of his lip. But behind closed doors, Elvis was fighting a losing war, one that would soon reach its tragic climax. Sleep had become his most elusive escape. Insomnia gripped him like a vice, leaving him pacing the halls of Graceland at all hours of the night, trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and dependency. The medication meant to help him only made things worse, prescriptions stacked upon prescriptions, a cocktail of sedatives and painkillers that blurred reality. His moods were unpredictable, swinging from restless energy to deep despair. Some nights he spoke of the past, reminiscing about his mother, about his career, about the things that might have been. Other nights, he barely spoke at all. Those around him saw the change, but no one could stop what was coming. Yet, on the surface, the final night seemed eerily normal, perhaps too normal. He played the piano, spoke to his fiancée, Ginger Alden, and even made casual plans for the next day. But there was something different about the air that night, an almost suffocating stillness hanging over Graceland. His last words were simple, seemingly ordinary, yet they now carry an unsettling weight. In hindsight, was there an unspoken sense of finality in them? Did he know, on some level, that this was the last night he would ever spend within the walls of his beloved home? Inside Graceland, a handful of people moved through the rooms, each absorbed in their own routines, unaware that history was about to shift forever. But some later admitted that something felt off. A strange energy loomed in the air, an unshakable heaviness. The king's inner circle had seen their fair share of long, restless nights, but this one was different. The timeline of events, the final interactions, even the placement of certain objects in the house, none of it sat right. And by the time the truth was finally discovered, it was already too late. But what really happened in those final, unseen hours? And why do so many details still remain clouded in mystery? The stillness of the early morning was shattered when Ginger Alden made a discovery that would change history forever. She had expected to find Elvis where she had last seen him, perhaps finally resting after another long, restless night. But as she stepped toward the bathroom, a chilling silence filled the air. And then, there he was. What she saw in that moment was something no one could ever prepare for. Shock paralyzed her, but only for a second. A scream tore through Graceland, echoing down the halls as reality came crashing down. The king of rock and roll was unresponsive, motionless in a place no one could have imagined. As her cries rang out, the once quiet mansion burst into chaos. The people inside, Elvis's closest confidants, family and staff, scrambled in confusion. Some rushed to his side, others stood frozen, unable to process what was unfolding before them. But amid the frantic attempts to help, there were strange gaps in those first crucial moments. Who was called first? How long did it take before paramedics arrived? Why do accounts from that morning seem to conflict in key details? It was as if time itself had warped. Those who were there couldn't seem to agree on exactly what happened, or when. And as panic gripped the house, one thing became clear: no one was prepared for this. When paramedics finally arrived, they were met with a scene that left even the most seasoned responders shaken. What they saw inside the walls of Graceland would later be described in hushed tones, some details omitted from the official record. Attempts to revive him were made, but deep down, many knew it was already too late. The questions started immediately. What had led to this? Was there something more than just an unexpected tragedy? As they transported him away, whispers of uncertainty swirled, and in the days that followed, the world would be told one version of the story. But was it the full truth? The official cause of death was quickly labeled as cardiac arrest, a sudden and tragic end to the life of a legend. But almost immediately, questions began to surface. How could a man once so full of life, even in his struggles, suddenly collapse without warning? The medical report gave the world a simple answer, one that seemed designed to put speculation to rest. But was it the full truth? Behind closed doors, whispers suggested otherwise. Something didn't sit right, and those who had been closest to Elvis in his final days couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, something the world wasn't being told. Then came the toxicology report, and with it, even more controversy. The results painted a disturbing picture. An alarming number of prescription drugs were found in his system, some in dangerously high quantities. How had it come to this? Had the medications meant to help him instead become his downfall? And more importantly, why wasn't this fact immediately disclosed? Some sources claimed the results were initially withheld to protect Elvis's legacy, while others believed there was an even deeper reason for the secrecy. What was Graceland hiding, and who was involved in keeping the truth from the public eye? In the years that followed, medical professionals who had examined Elvis began to reveal troubling details about his health. His body had been failing him for years, long before that fateful night. His organs were reportedly deteriorating, his weight had fluctuated drastically, and his heart had been under extreme strain. Yet, these admissions only raised more questions. If his condition had been so severe, why was there no urgency to help him? Why was he still performing, still pushing himself to the brink? The answers remained elusive, buried beneath layers of speculation and half-truths. Even those who knew Elvis best couldn't agree on what had really happened. Close friends and family members recalled conflicting details about his final months, some insisting he was improving, others saying they feared for his life. The accounts of his last interactions varied, as if different versions of the same story were being told. What was fact, and what was carefully constructed fiction? And most importantly, why did so many of these accounts contradict the official narrative? Somewhere in the gaps, between what was said and what was left unsaid, the real story of Elvis Presley's final night remains hidden. But will the truth ever fully come to light? From the very beginning, there were whispers that the full story of what happened that night would never see the light of day. Some claimed that key details were deliberately omitted, a carefully crafted narrative put in place to protect not only Elvis's legacy, but also the reputation of those closest to him. The King of Rock and Roll was more than just a musician. He was an icon, a cultural phenomenon, and to some, almost a deity. Would the world ever be ready to accept the truth, no matter how dark or complicated it might be? Or was it easier to present a sanitized version of events, one that kept the mystery alive, but kept the most unsettling details hidden? Adding to the eerie nature of his passing was a heartbreaking connection to his mother, Gladys Presley. Elvis had always been deeply attached to her, and her sudden death at the age of 46 left a permanent scar on his soul. He had watched as her health deteriorated, as she suffered from mysterious ailments, exhaustion, and the same dependence on medication that would later plague him. Those who knew Elvis best recalled how he often spoke of her final days with an unsettling familiarity, as if he felt their fates were somehow intertwined. Was history repeating itself? Had the same forces that took Gladys far too soon also been creeping up on Elvis, unnoticed until it was too late? Even more chilling were the premonitions he had about his own death. Throughout his life, Elvis spoke frequently about an early end, as if he knew deep down that he wouldn't grow old. He would reference his mother's passing, telling those closest to him that he never expected to live much longer than she did. Friends recalled conversations where he seemed fixated on the idea, as if some unseen force had already determined his fate. These weren't just passing thoughts. They were deep-seated beliefs, ones that he carried with him until his final days. Did Elvis sense something coming? And if so, was there any way it could have been prevented? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of it all were the revelations that surfaced after his death. Insiders, people who had been with Elvis in his final months, began to speak out, hinting at troubling secrets that had long been kept in the shadows. Some suggested that medical professionals had known more than they admitted. Others believed that certain figures in Elvis's life had downplayed just how dire his condition truly was. And then there were those who insisted that crucial evidence had been altered or erased entirely. But if that were true, the biggest question remains: who had the power to cover it up, and why? The world had barely begun to process the shocking news of Elvis Presley's death when another mystery emerged. Why was his funeral arranged so quickly? Just 2 days after his passing, the king was laid to rest in a ceremony that felt eerily rushed, leaving many to question the urgency. For a figure as monumental as Elvis, a man whose influence spanned generations, wouldn't it have made sense to allow more time for public tributes, for fans to say their final goodbyes? Yet, within hours, plans were in motion, and by the time the sun set on August 18th, he was already entombed at Graceland. Some speculated that it was a decision made out of respect for privacy, a way to shield his family from overwhelming media attention. But others weren't so sure. Was there another reason why everything had to be wrapped up so quickly? Then, there was the infamous coffin photo, a single image that sent shockwaves through the world. Snapped in secrecy, it captured Elvis lying in his casket, his face seemingly frozen in a peaceful slumber. But the real question wasn't just who took it, it was why. The photo was soon leaked to a national magazine, fueling a storm of controversy and speculation. Some pointed fingers at close associates, even family members, while others believed it was an elaborate hoax. The image itself seemed off, his appearance too perfect, too composed. Was it truly the final image of Elvis, or was there something more to the story? As time passed, conspiracy theories swirled. Had the king really died that night, or was there something more sinister at play? Some believed his death had been staged, a desperate attempt to escape the pressures of fame and a life that had become unbearable. Others questioned the official reports, suggesting that the details didn't add up, that key facts had been altered or withheld. Even those closest to him couldn't agree on the exact circumstances, leading to decades of unanswered questions. The more people searched for the truth, the more elusive it seemed to become. Could it be that the real story had been buried along with him? Regardless of the theories, one fact remains undeniable. Elvis Presley's passing changed the world of music forever. The king was more than just an entertainer. He was a symbol of rebellion, passion, and raw talent, an artist who redefined an entire era. With his sudden departure, an entire generation felt a void that could never truly be filled. His music remained, his legend endured, but something had shifted. The stage lights had dimmed, the voice that once shook arenas had gone silent. And yet, even in death, Elvis Presley remained larger than life. His story, his influence, and the mysteries surrounding his final days, ensuring that the king would never truly leave the building. Elvis Presley's final night remains one of the most debated moments in music history. So many questions still linger. and the truth, if it was ever fully known, may have been buried along with the king himself. Did we ever truly understand what happened that night? Or was there a hidden truth that was never meant to be uncovered? Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think really happened? Was it just a tragic accident, or is there more to the story that the world was never told? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read them all, and if you love uncovering the mysteries behind Elvis Presley's life and legacy, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. There's so much more to explore, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Like this video, share it with fellow Elvis fans, and let's keep the conversation going.